yogi mya tiyatu yama Andrea came with a long chong out of Hoya body. Jangam Yaga Longjoyi chap it over. Longjoyi Lolote a Taiwan one near when I chant over the other. No city came with the Atovara. Sidati for you, the money to be to get Chandaru Yashi Yedwe Atoyama. Now she can lily, Atolo Povilo County. It a longevity chap, longevity a child and needy TCB. Dine Longas in the subject of Jova. A lolo dagaro. Dila Diani has sat in me, a look over. The Longani loaded Kanyoma. Tidi loaded knee lady body. SADHU and let me to go Ponsa Vida. Game Piavama. Suzu said not home water lower. Look at it, ye name Piotr Vitanama. Konosita Tombalo. A Pianasari gave it a ton of shishin. Each every piece of Husuraha. Take each of loaded needy. Sarugan Savana, you did not home. Lila. The Charavasi Matwazi Venu. Needy TV solution, Sarugan Manasi Kara. You did it, did it. The London Shumaya, Pore, our Nashimata Sine. Kunja, dead were on level. Other Shumaya. In the Chene, Sunday. In the Che, Piezon Laloche, Piezon Loloche. The Marile Lolo Shilla. The Maria Noga, the Gate Mandiarego, Chigas, Savido, a sense Dimila. Don't have a low. Papula Lesser. Matanda Venevoli, to get Lord Tia, Johnny, Saya Johnny, Peep Biro, through Pila de Kama, the gate in Jim City. I will call it in Jim City, Kuma Pila. That is Javare.
When the yogis practice, in order to be free of danger and to be able to practice in safety, the texts prescribe a method for security, for establishing security. And this creates a boundary so that disturbances can't arise. When we're practicing to gain true happiness, then to the extent that we can practice without disturbances, that's the best. So, having established this protective security, now is the time to speak about the task. Starting with keeping sila, the yogis have been working at the task. And there is an effective way to There's an effective way to work. And this combines theory and practice, the method that Sayadawgyi is going to teach. So one needs to listen carefully. As Sayadawgyi mentioned previously, for clean and pure physical, verbal, and mental behavior to arise, for us to become truly tamed and cultivated, then there are two things that are needed. One is that we need to listen attentively to the method, sadhukang savana. There needs to be attentive listening, respectful listening. That means not letting one's attention wander. And knowing the method, one has to take it to heart and to apply it. Sadhukang manasikara. One has to really take it in and use it. And that means to observe with the mind the arising object. So if one has these two, if one listens respectfully and then knowing the method, one uses it, one takes it to heart, then when these two factors become complete, concentration, samadhi, arises naturally. And from that, knowledge of the way things really are develops stage by stage on its own. So there's no need to wish for these things to come about. And the reason for that is that when the causes are there, when the causes are fulfilled, then the results will occur. So when the causes are there for cultivated behavior, for knowledge to become cultivated, then that will happen. This is sure to be.
လုံနီးလုံဟန်နေလဲကြာကြာနာနာမထင်နာမထောင်ပေါ်ဆဆအလုံးလုံးတော့လည်းပဲယူသေးသေးမရှိဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အခုလိုတရားနေတဲ့မှာအဲ့လိုပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေတွေ့ရပြီဆိုရင်စိတ်ကနောက်ကျသွားတယ်သို့တော့မုန်းတာတော့မဟုတ်ပါဘူးအမှန်တန်ဖိုးရှိတဲ့အလုပ်ကိုပေါ်ဆဆလုပ်ပြီးတကူဆိုတာပေါ့လေဒီမှာတန်ဖိုးမထားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ပဲဆိုတာသိသွားတော့အဲ့ဒီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ထင်မြင်သေးတယ်အဲ့တော့တရားနေတဲ့မှာသူများကလေ့လာကြည့်လို့သုံးအမှတ်တမဲ့တွေ့လို့အထင်သေးမခံရဘူးလည်းပဲအရေးကြီးပါတယ်သူများအထင်သေးလို့ရှိရင်လည်းသူများလည်းအကုသိုလ်တွေဖြစ်သွားတယ်ဒီတော့ဟန်ဆောင်မဟုတ်ဖဲနဲ့တကယ်ကိုဒီတရားများနိုးပြီးတော့ဘောလေကြာကြာနာနာလောက်တတ်အောင်တရုကံတဝနာယူသေးသေးလေးလေးစားစားနာယူဖို့ဟောပြောတဲ့ချက်တွေနာယူဖို့အနိကကမ္မထမ်းဆရာကြီးညွှန်ကြားချက်ကိုလည်းပဲယူသေးသေးလေးလေးစားစားနာယူဖို့ယူသေးသေးလေးလေးစားစားစိစိဆက်ဆက်ပေါ့လေပြုလုပ်ဖို့ဒါယောဂီများမှာတောင်းရှိပါလားကိုကြောက်တဲ့တောင်းလစ်ဟင်းပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အကျိုးလုံးဝမရတာလည်းရှိပါတယ်မယုံသေးဘူးဆိုရင်တော့ဟောပြောချက်ကိုလည်းမယုံသေးဘူးလုံးတဲ့ခါလည်းမယုံသေးဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကမ္ဘာဆရာတွေလည်းဘာမှတတ်နိုင်တစ်ခါလောက်စိတ်နှစ်ခါလောက်စိတ်သုံးခါလောက်စိတ်လုံးမှဘာမှမမေ့ရမရှိဘူးဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒီအယောဂီပေါ်တော့သိပြီးတော့ဂရုမစိုက်တော့ယောသေးသေးလောက်တဲ့ယောဂီပေါ်ပဲဂရုစိုက်တော့တာပါအဲ့ဒီကမ္မထမ်းဆရာရဲ့လိလူရှုမှုခံရပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကိုယ့်အတွက်ကတော့တရားနေတဲ့မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့နစ်နာတာပဲဆုံးရှုံးတာပဲတော့ဝိလန်တဲ့နေရာကငွေကြေးတွေအကုန်ကြခံပြီးတော့လာတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာကိုယ့်အတွက်ဆုံးရှုံးမှုမရှိအောင်ပေါ့လေအမြတ်တွေထွက်ရအောင်ယောဂီတို့ဘက်ကယူတည်တည်နောက်ထောင်ကြပါအမိတ်နဲ့မဟုတ်ပါဘူးအလုပ်ရဲ့ကျိုးနားလည်းပြီးတော့မျက်မျက်နှုံနှုံတံပိုးထားကြပါတံပိုးထားပြီးတော့လုံးဝအိပ်ပျော်ခြင်းကခြံထားပြီးတော့ကျန်တဲ့အချိန်တွေမှာအမြဲတမ်းအလုပ်ရှိပါစေစိတ်ကနေမှအလုပ်ရှိပါစေအသိအရေးကြီးပါလား
Yogis have come here from all over the world and they've left their businesses, their families behind because of cherishing the Dhamma and because of wanting to be truly human, to develop a human heart, to gain special knowledge. And some have this goal in mind. This is a good goal to have. And some have the objective that they just want to try this out. Some want to try this as well as many other things. So people have come here with various objectives. However, whatever the objective one may have, what Sayadawgyi teaches is the method for developing human culture, for developing true humanity. That is, for becoming a true human being, for learning to keep one's mind and heart humane, for developing special human knowledge. And for one who really cherishes and wants to have the benefits from the practice, then one should listen carefully on how to do this work. This isn't an order that you have to listen carefully, but if you want to know how to do this, one should listen respectfully. And doing the work has to be done respectfully, meticulously, without stopping, without taking breaks. So one has to know the method in order to do this task. And therefore those who want the benefits from the practice listen carefully and then apply what they learn respectfully. And when those who are helping see such yogis who are undertaking their responsibility, the people around the yogis really love such yogis. And they really feel that person knows and respects the practice. So people feel a lot of love when they see that. If on the other hand, one doesn't listen to the instructions, or if one listens carelessly, or if one doesn't apply the instructions, when people around such yogis see them, then the mind feels not hatred, but the mind feels cloudy. Because one knows that such a person doesn't value the practice. It's obvious from the way the person is behaving. And then the people around such yogis don't think very highly of them. So don't let yourself be underestimated by others around you. Also, don't pretend to practice. Just listen carefully. There needs to be this sadhukang savana, careful listening to the instructions, to the talks, the Dhamma talks in the evening, and also to what the interview teacher says. And then one has to undertake the work with respect for the practice, meticulously, carefully. Every yogi has this responsibility. And if one doesn't undertake one's responsibility, then the interview teacher will, after one interview or two interviews, 3 interviews, if the yogi is still not listening to what the teacher says, if the yogi is still not applying the instructions, then what can the teacher do? They can't do much. So in that case, they just have to kind of be equanimous about it. They have to not pay any special care to the yogi because it doesn't have any effect. So, on the other hand, when one sees a yogi that is taking care with the practice, then the meditation teachers will take care of that yogi. So, if one doesn't listen to the teacher and the teacher begins to ignore you, then one misses the chance to gain the Dhamma in this case. And on top of that, one has already invested something in coming here. One has paid for one's plane ticket and so on. So in order to have a profit on the side of the Dhamma, listen carefully to the instructions and apply them. Have a mind that cherishes the benefits of the practice. And except for when you're asleep, always be applying the instructions, always be working every second of the time. This is very important.
ဒီနေ့ကတော့အခရာရှစ်လုံးပါတဲ့ဝါကြလေးတစ်ခုနဲ့စလုံးရှစ်လုံးရှိတဲ့ဝါကြလေးတစ်ခုနဲ့အထုတ်တဲ့နည်းတွေပေါ့လေစပြီးတော့ပြောမှာပေါ့ဘူတံဘုဒ္ဓတော်ပစ္စတိတဲ့ဒါဘုရားဟောပဲဉာဏ်မျက်စိပွင့်လို့တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဟာတကယ်ကိုယ်တည်းကယုံနာအရှိသဘောတွေနားလို့တဲ့လက်တွေ့သိလို့တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာယုံနာတရားတွေအချင်းချင်းအကြောင်းဆက်သွယ်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်ပုံတွေကိုသိလို့တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာတ through your Mamesi, the Bobe, Sudaboli, Chias on Tilu Pocoha. The Yamati sister with the Upatan and Ije Pies on Miro. To get Chanta to Yalu de Pocoriha. Pichi Nida to Pitai as I Shuba Pokega Palibada Nale de Pocori, so Rotelo Piola Lucia. The Bopo Javare Putan Pichi Nirago Putado to Pichi de Die Pasati shooting near the Dava Kukala Piojava, she died Jiva, she died Jiro, she died Mianga. Edith Garnet, Nimia, English Garnet, she owns Shibalima.
Today, Sayadawgyi is going to start to speak about a sentence said by the Buddha that is 8 syllables long, one short sentence, and that sentence is Bhutang Bhudato Pasati. So for one who wants to develop knowledge, to see the true nature of mind and matter, nama and rupa, to see how these are related as cause and effect, to see how these nama and rupa, which are related as cause and effect, are not permanent, how they are unsatisfactory, how they lack an inherent self, and from there to develop vipassana knowledge through all the stages until completion. For one to do this, what they need to do is observe what is as it is. So in the past, when people understood Pali, they would hear the words Bhutang Bhutato Pasati, and they would know what it meant. Bhutang means what is, what occurs. Bhudato means as it is. One should observe what is as it is. And this is the method of meditation in summary.
Pinida, Shinida, Tuyama, Pinida, Shinida, Era, 2 Lila Mulu, Goma, Shinida, Pitago, she died young Chivo, Yichiva, Janza Biology, Goma, Majorari, Pio Nuyanari. A unit doti majorare. Dari join at you, pure in Yanare. Dari Chinida, Sakwara, Patuida look over the Mitati one. Kurema, Kenny Arishida. So Dashida. That is Shiva. Churibadi Toteka, Mary Bari Bachareka, Nayiri Bari Chareka, Gini Bari Soneka, Yeri, what are it in Shara? Pura Shida, Nuera Shida, Era Shida, Pora Shida, Takurema. Pam, Shagun, Kurema, Pina, the gay. Dona Shida, Tena Shida, Luta Shida, that is Shida. Chanza River Messi Chida Chida, a single Payu Nailoda. Now she did a Tampayu Nana. The Kong she did, Shashi did, Koma to Columbiana needed, a Chida Tishida. Tara Timothy Shago, Kona, living out of Matin Midi she did. Jati Rashida, Nandi Rashida, Yada Satira Shide, Titida Shide, Sekusina Chajida Shida River. Hello, I am Yozo, say net. So zero the volley, the T-Twig. So zibi solochi and Kansamu lady. Kone Iona Sonzilochi, Gon Kansamu lady. So the Iona Sonzilochi and so Kansamu lady. Masuma Gon Ja, Iona Tulochi and Madimida. Kansamu lady will have jet up there. Daga Nandiari. The Yogiana Nadia. Dread of Chedina. Middle Kata, Melopita Puna Asa. Nana Yogiari, Dread of Chedina. The Chama, Shawu Malo. Era de go where Lila Tuama. Ericoma Kili had a Buddha look over the Buddha. Kili, she did a she did a Era the old Yogi Shumaya. Dodo, she's a bit of a Shimafu, Daga, Mave, Daga, Piove, Daga, Kerave, Daga, Tuerave, Daga, Yipurave, you see the Sigataves, Rotiro. The little shot to be a Mafu, a Savino. The bone of my armor. Any Mapon is set your woman.
What is, what occurs, what is happening? There's no need to observe what is happening in others. We just need to observe what is happening in ourselves. So if we examine the body, feel it, we can feel hardness, we can feel softness. If we happen to touch a bony area, it feels hard. If we touch a fleshy area, it feels soft. This is really there. This is called Patavi Dhatu in Pali, the earth element. And there's the quality of being solid or being moist. This is there in the body. And when there's sweat flowing, or tears, or our nose runs, this quality is obvious. There's heat, coolness, warmth, the quality of lightness. This is also there. This happens in us. There's stiffness, tension, movement. There's the eye that is capable of seeing. There's the ear, which can capture sound. There's the nose, which can capture smell. The tongue, capable of taste. The body base, capable of touch. These are what is obvious. And then there's seeing consciousness, knowing the sight. There's hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, touch consciousness, and then there's awareness of mind objects. So there's various objects contacting the mind. This is called contact. And because of contact between the mind and an object, there's feeling. Feeling is, if there's a good contact, then there's pleasant feeling that arises, a good feeling. If there's a bad contact, bad object, then there's unpleasant feeling. And then there are objects that are in between, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. There's a neutral feeling to those. So in all of this, there's mind and there's body. Consciousness, contact, feeling, these are mind. And in our experience, there's mind and body, nama and rupa, occurring in pairs. starting with such small acts as opening and closing the eyes, blinking. So there's no need to search for these things. They happen in us. So we have to study what happens inside of us. And that is bhuta. That is what is happening, what happens, what occurs. To know this, the yogis must observe, but not with thinking about it, not with deliberately trying to find out, hardness, softness, and so on. One doesn't deliberately search it out like that. Just note, observe as a whole. And Sayadawgyi will continue to speak about this.
Tishazo Yona Tia on the Puya Quibia. I go for you to do a Tani Topido Yogi Piopiani Vare Yogi Nare Male Poido Tan Take a bit of body by the Jani Vara. Here I go not how the Jari as Ravoli, the lower Pio Shivara. To the dilemma to get she the body go. Quite Gilushi, Dakwa Gilushi, body she the road, or Nashi. Nicolau never tango. Lekan Payum they loved it. A cheated the mule body. Pali little sort of that, Pasada look over. A cheated. Era Kanda look over. Lare Taneo Dua, Lekan Payum, a Kanda look over. Poido Pioni says it, Tanslini only. I did the line yogi Nare Yoga Jari. Take that cord, lie over the take up for her. But she will yellow yahoo. Never take up body of her. A take up here at Tanga, Kanda Narema, take pony. Yogi Jari, Lady Tanio. Jatida. Era upon that cover. Narema Tane saying it so zini. Daga Fata sort of twible, a twitter. So zita the wall, so zita. Dalila Tinshara. Taijue, Dalina, so zero chi, Kanzamu Kona. Kubjade Tanjalushi, Kanzamu Macom. A lela Dani Janialushi, and Leva Matimida, Kanzamu Lydia, Shini Vada. There will not look over. Jati, Jatwi, Jakanza. Kuna Kandane Tataga, Yudiari. Jati, Jatwi, Jakanza, Nadia, the Elu Quajataware. Era Jare Kaitama Buddha Tisha.
To know mind and matter, nama and rupa, Sayadawgyi will explain in an obvious way. Just now, Sayadawgyi was speaking. And as Sayadawgyi spoke, sound waves, sound was created, and the yogis were listening. So the yogis, as the yogis listen, the sound from Sayadawgyi strikes the ear, and this is called hearing or listening. What is really there in the moment of hearing the sound? There's the ear. And inside the ear, there's an element called in Pali sota pasada, which is capable of hearing, capable of capturing sound. So this is called in English the receptor or base. As Sayadawgyi spoke, the sound waves went in a series and reached the yogi's ears and strike the ear. So that's called the striker, the sound. The sound waves strike the ear. This can't be denied. This is really there. Because of the sound striking the ear, the yogis hear. So there's hearing consciousness. This is called the spark. The sound and the mind are in contact, they meet, and this is called phassa in Pali. It means meeting, contact. So this too is obvious, this too is happening. Due to contact, there's feeling. When the sound is one we like, then there's a pleasant feeling. When there's a sound that we don't like, then there's an unpleasant feeling. Some sounds are neither likable nor dislikable, and the feeling is neutral. This feeling is called Vedana in Pali. So at that moment, there's knowing the sound, that is hearing consciousness, contact and feeling, and this is mind, this is nama. The sound and the ear are rupa, this is matter. So in the moment of hearing, this is what happens, this is what really is, this is bhuta.
Buddhaဆိုတာကจิตတကံပစ္စည်းဇာတတ္တာတဲ့ဆရာအကြောင်းတို့ကြောင့်အတိအတိဖြစ်လာတဲ့အရာတွေကိုပါဠိလိုဘုဒ္ဓလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်အခုဒီမှာနာအကြည်တတ်ကတော့အခုလောလောဆယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်စေဥဒုအာဟာရတို့အစဉ်ပြေးနေတော့နားထဲမှာရှိနေတဲ့အကြည်တတ်ဟာအစဉ်ပြေးနေတာပဲအကြောင်းရင်းကတော့ဝိဓမာနည်းနဲ့ပြောရလို့ရှိရင်ရှေးကုသကံကြောင့်ဖြစ်တယ်လို့ဒီလိုဆိုရတယ်ဒီခုလောလောဆယ်စေဥဒုအာဟာရအထောက်ပံ့နေဖြစ်နေတာအကြောင်းပဲဖြစ်တာဒီဘာမှမရှိဘူးအဲ့ဒါဆရာအကြောင်းကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတဲ့နာအကြည်တတ်ဒါလေးနားလည်ရပါတယ်အတန်ကဘုရားနေဖြစ်တာလဲဆိုတော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့ပြောတဲ့ဒါတော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့တဏ္ဍာမှာရှိနေတဲ့စိတ်ကြောင့်ပေါ့အဲ့ဒီအတန်လှိုင်းတွေကရှင်းရှင်းဆက်သွားတဲ့အတန်လှိုင်းတွေကယောဂီတွေနားရဲရောက်သွားတာဒါထင်ရှားတာပဲသူကတော့ကိုယ်မှလာကြားတာပဲသူကဘုဆက်နဲ့သွားတဲ့အတန်တွေကပေါ့လေနားရဲရောက်လာတာဒါလည်းထင်ရှားတာယထတကံပစ္စည်းဆိုတာပေါ့လေမူလကတော့စိတ်ကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့နောက်ဘုဆက်နဲ့သွားတာပထဝီဘောတိဇောဝါယောဆိုတော့ဘုဆက်နဲ့ရောက်သွားတာနောက်ကြားလာတယ်ဓာတိတဲ့စိတ်ကဒါကရှေ့ကအကြောင်းခံပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေဖြစ်ပေါ်တဲ့စိတ်တွေ့တယ်ခံစားတယ်ဒါလည်းရှေ့ကအကြောင်းခံပြီးတော့ဈာစိတ်ပဲသူကတော့တန်ရှင်းတဲ့ကုသိုလ်စိတ်လည်းမဟုတ်သေးဘူးမတန်ရှင်းတဲ့အကုသိုလ်စိတ်လည်းမဟုတ်ဘူးဈာစိတ်ပဲရှိသေးတယ်ဗျဒါဖြစ်ဟုတ်ဖြစ်စဉ်တိုင်းပဲအဲ့ဒါတွေကဒီတော့ကိုယ်မှာယုတ်တရားတွေလည်းထင်ရှားနေတယ်နံတရားတွေလည်းထင်ရှားနေတယ်ဈာတိတဲ့အဲ့ဒါကိုဘုဒ္ဓလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်အကြောင်းကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပေါ်လာပြီးတော့မျက်မှောက်အားဖြင့်ထင်ရှားတာတဲ့ပရမတ္ထဒေါသဝိသမာနတ္တတဲ့ဘယ်သူမှညင်းလို့မရဘူးခန္ဓာတိုက်တာအပွင့်တနေတဲ့သုံးသက်လည်းပဲဒါညင်းလို့မရဘူးဆရာအကြောင်းကြောင့်လည်းဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတယ်မျက်မှောက်တွေအားဖြင့်လည်းပဲသုံးသက်ကြည့်လို့ရှိရင်တကယ်လည်းရှိနေတယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုပဲအဲ့ဒါအရှိခေါ်ပါတယ်ဖြစ်အရှိဖြစ်ရှိလို့ခေါ်တယ်ဖြစ်ရှိတရားတဲ့အဲ့ဒီဟာဒီပေါင်းစပ်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်နေတာကိုဘုရားတို့မြန်မာလိုတော့ကြားတယ်ပေါ့လေပေါင်းပြီးတော့ခေါ်လိုက်တာပဲကြားတယ်ကြားတဲ့အခါထင်ရှားနေတော့ Malushi to Kuji Quabito of Mapomolo, Jare, Betty, Pompey of Fire. Era Mother Needy Body. Buddha, two pity Taisura, Jara or Jare, Betty to Fire.
Buddha, it said that what occurs, arises ever anew, one after another, due to respective causes. Here, there's the ear, and the root cause, the initial cause for us to have an ear, is our previous good karma. But at the present moment, the cause for the ear to be here and capable of hearing is because it is supported by the mind, by the weather around us, and by food. So this is what occurs, this is what is. And the sound, as Sayadawgyi or I speak, this occurs due to the mind. And the sound waves travel and reach the yogi's ears, and there's hearing. So this is how, due to their respective causes, what is there is. There are also the four elements involved. So one hears, there's hearing consciousness. And this is a consciousness that is neither wholesome nor unwholesome, and it's due to past karma. So at the moment of hearing, there's mind and there's matter. These are happening, nama and rupa. And this is Buddha. So one meaning of Buddha is that it is that which arises due to causes, ever anew. It also means that which can be seen directly when one examines it, when one looks at it. So this is what is happening, this is what is, this is the Dhamma that is. And we observe it as a whole. When we meditate, we observe hearing as hearing. We don't divide it up into parts in order to observe hearing. We just observe it the way it is, buddhato. So we note hearing as hearing.
Padama Sagaro, I do a pound like a sure about it. Nyapio Susan, typing and Yawari. Pound like Shiva Mialochi, a pound lega. I say, finally, now do a little tiller. Teacher who appear as Lucia, Ludio, Minaga, I say, by teaching Lucia. In poop ship, the count ship, bazaar ship, bar ship, Melon ship, teaching Lucia. But Massa, Eda, quite you, who quite you, Madina Mau. Pompito cheer, Tuniana to Coulon, Sachier. Sabira Gene Lucia, the Caragan, the Fuzio, and the Putima, the Caragan County, and the County, the Caraga Bazio, the Badima, the Caraga Mezio, the Mezitima. A say pretty, but the Miago, to say terror of Medina Mahu. Tumiana and Comina, Debito body, Sabiro Chima, but a pound like Miela, Vio, Sabiro Saikini, Mesoluciano. Quago Piavia to Kuji Tiro, Cose Wazari, a Yabramazo Satira, Eddie the Wonova, who Jare Soluciano, Jare Gatamati, Nachita, Quachilumiabu, a town line Quachilumiabu, Nachi Quachilumiabu, Pero Narama Sonzira, the water Quachilumiabu. Kanzara to Quachilumia Devahu, a pound like Pechia Vadire, Jare, Savoli, Kunaho, the Petapo, yet, Miana machine, go 7 Zare, say better go, DJ Lucy, Bounty, Psyche, bounty, psyche, era Cosi was at a say him a polar at theatre about it, I do the whole unit lower. A 2 o'clock the whole minute to create what we do, and at a lead with Mahudo, lead with Lamatina, no.
At first, we have to observe as a whole and using concepts. Later on, one knows the parts which are involved automatically. For example, when we want to know a person's face, we want to know how some part of the person's face looks, we can't just focus in on that part right away. We have to first look at the face as a whole. And sometimes our eyes will fall on the forehead, and we'll know the forehead. Sometimes our glance will fall on the eye or on the cheek, then we'll know what the eye looks like or the cheek looks like. Sometimes our gaze will fall on the nose, and we'll know how that looks. So in order for us to know, we have to be face to face with the other person, and we have to focus on their face, and we have to look at it as a whole. But as we look, the part that interests us, the part that is interesting to us, becomes apparent. And in hearing, when we observe hearing, we can't just focus on the ear. We can't just separate out the sound and focus on that, or focus on the sense of contact. At this point in time, we have to just observe as a whole, hearing. And as in the case of when we want to know the way some part of a person's face looks, first we have to start by looking at the face as a whole, and the part that we are interested in will become apparent as we look. So in the same way, when we observe hearing, the parts of it will become apparent to us as we observe the hearing as a whole. And this is something that we cannot gain we cannot know practically by using reflection. This is not something that we should let reflection enter into.
Dhamma, vipassana, teaching them, a chain to the lower cases, so silly Nigalumiahu. But Mazo, I think it's in her. Jalita never edisi, humoristically yoked Aburubi Asayari. Atapa look over, Atabasu Aburubi Asayta. Merely no journey at a secretary, Pelayare, Pelayare, take your near, send it here. Is a cellular sailing Nikanam Yahu, Ning I name Yahu, a twin and Ning I name Yahu, Era Lurera, Era Wolia Cover, Atapalu Cover, here, Era Shiva Yara. Chidale Kaito on Sandavole Power, Jaja, Erijade Kaitama Shide, the Bawatiari ne, Tiga Sene, Death to our body, Soji to our body, or Paloa Legama, Uezu Suraboli, Uezuta, Talepa, whatever. Purvi Asayade, Miedan Levedama, Uezum Shiade, Eraliate, Yejibade, Erago shoot a look for our Vetoma, Charging Lenge, Purvi Asaipa, Eddie Sai Chadwalo, Ching Dakapiva, Yadame, second name Malapoli Chaja Lube. Two to a Mineka, Naneka, Sareka, Tijeka, Tideka, Kuideka, Saneka, Sauneka, Gereka, Metokata Melubita Punasa, Kolomeri, Pipich in Lange, Purbi Asai. Ning I mean it, no chat take your shella. She did the yogi aluga, Datakuashi. It appears on Dalushi, Nabaya, the tea of the Maridu Pinarosra, a little pillar of the yogi aluga, the idea of
We can't observe before the moment of hearing. We can't observe after hearing happens. We have to observe right when it happens. And only then will our observation be clear. What has to be done in time can't be done sluggishly. So one has to be ready. One has to apply ardent effort, called in Pali atapa, as soon as the object arises. The mind has to be active and alert, not sluggish, not slow, not dull in gazing. So for this we need virya, or ardent effort. And we also need aim. That is, the mind has to be focused properly on the object. This is a jhanic quality. So this quality of aim makes the mind connect with the object. So we apply effort and aim the mind in order to observe. So this is what observation is made up of, these two qualities: applying our effort when the object arises and aiming the mind so that it connects with the object. As soon as hearing arises, we have to apply our effort and aim the mind every second of the time. And the same at the moment of seeing, at the moment of smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, at the moment of bending, the moment of stretching, the moment of lifting, moving, placing, rising, falling, blinking, opening and closing the eyes. One has to always be applying effort and aiming the mind. One shouldn't just let oneself gaze. So the yogis have to have just this one job to do, that is to observe what is happening. And if one does this, if one continuously applies effort and aim to observe the arising object, then sati, samadhi, panya will automatically arise. So every day the yogis must do this job, must do this work.
Jaji ago you jare daimoli Jazaganama Tinshani the Geshi Tia Osubo Mawoli Sickly Yogwa would even know our penny. Sick is a section of Pero Ning in Alam Shivu Yo Yalam Shivu near a touch of Shalanira. The ginger Pitology, the ginger near Ma. Be at the was rabble, says of Sia Kone, Pama Malochin, and Sonny the P at the Era Wumono. Era a Pimania Matu, a SADHU later with the Mazua. When a beat at the Voga, Jazza, and Yaza Sitari, Outdanza Sitari, Luyani Lekan Sitari. Any SADHU later. Popoja rally the day all USU paid her to say her to Sharva Chomdoro. Yadova Kama Bunari, or Kama, I was the Sayada. Kona lady, see out. Mijina, Jajina, Najina, Sajina, Tijina, Already. Pero, Cosina Mateo solution level, Pesijana, Duka Pejana body, Tiluamili Peter, Miado Piano, Kama Bonga Soro, Kama Uteti, Miadabare, Edisi, Seka Utete, or Miavare. Ulagin Pore, Jade Katam, Jamuli Poma, Sekariga, you assume Shini with Lucy Edari Bama Keto. Tashin, Lula, they come now. It is secretly the Jay and the Jay. Pilla, the Edda Pavana Korave. The Jay Network Lucian, Obama Arms Shivu, the Jay Momiala Lucian, the Kunatua, the Bodu Egyptian, Shida. Eddie Tashin holiday, the Kunatu Sesani, our column Arishila. The legend be at it. Legend Lucian, people who tend to have a pillar. The English government, she was a practice to make perfect. Legend Lobiata, legend take each of us. You are Sayadawgyi Pokori, a legend of a Shira, legend be a Manara legend be a.
To get our mind to be able to see what is really there at the moment of hearing. As soon as hearing occurs, we have to apply ardent effort. And when we do this, the mind doesn't get cold or sluggish. It's always active and alert when we apply our mind to observe at the moment of arising. And when we do this one moment after another, observing what happens, then laziness cannot arise. Laziness is a disgusting quality that is accepted by people who are low and base. And when we observe with ardent effort, then instead of laziness, there's effort in our mind. And also, as soon as hearing arises, one has to aim the mind. And when one does that, the mind doesn't go anywhere else. Since we are beings that live in the world of the senses, our minds tend to go to sense pleasures, wanting to see, hear, smell, taste, touch delightful things. Some people, their mind tends to go to what they don't like. And then there's dissatisfaction and dislike. But mostly our minds, if not applied, go to things that we like. Because of the factor of aiming, this doesn't happen. The mind doesn't go anywhere else. And therefore, the mind becomes clean. And this is wholesome, very good. When this happens again and again, this clean mind is created and occurs one moment after another. This is called bhavana, mental development. One occurrence of this clean mind is not very strong, but when one follows another, then because this one clean mind and another, they are basically the same, the energy builds. And we have to practice in order to develop this. Sayadawgyi said, as you could hear, the English saying, practice makes perfect, and this is very applicable for us. It's very important for a concept for us to have. Yogis here are at the start of the practice, and so it's necessary to practice in order to develop this. We have to practice steadily without taking a break.
The Oriya Shivi, Chinala Kaini, so the Burma Secretary. Attention, no column later, go to Abdullah or Sanjebe, Muta Jali, you to meet later. Attention, မျိုးသမီးရတဲ့မျိုးသားတန်ကြားလို့ရှိရင်တန်ရှင်းတော့မလိုက်တော့စိတ်ကူးတွေတခါလေးပြတ်သွားတော့ပဲစိတ်ကူးတွေပြတ်တော့ကိလေသာတွေလည်းပဲတော့ဖြစ်ခွင့်မရတော့ဘူးလည်းငယ်အကျိုးရှိသွားတာအဲ့ဒါနောက်နေ့တွေကြာမှအဲ့ဒါတွေဆက်ပြောပါမယ်ဒီနေ့ကတော့တဏှာကြီးပြည့်သွားတော့ဒီမှာပဲရကြအောင်ဆိုနောက်နေ့ကျတော့အခုထိုင်မှတ်တဲ့အခါမှာဖောင်းမှုပင်မှုမှတ်ပုံလေးတွေပါအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေထည့်ပြီးတော့ပြောပါမယ်ဒါပဲတော့ကြအောင်ဆို
Because of observing as soon as hearing arises, if there's effort to get the mind there and aiming, then the mind will fall on this sound. The mind will fall on the object. And there won't be any wondering about who said that. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Thinking is cut off right away. And therefore no kilesas can arise. This is the immediate benefit of the practice. Sayadawgyi is going to continue tomorrow night. He wanted to speak more about how to practice, how to meditate and practice, but for now, that will be all for today. Sadhu.